If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
In this special edition episode of Mind Pump. Now, we are the leading podcast in fitness, health, and fitness health comedy.
We're number one.
We have a lot of fun, good time, and we love educating people. Here's what we talked about in this episode. So for the first 45 minutes, it was our introductory fun time current events conversation. I talked about supplements and nootropics. I talked about my experience with the Racetem class of synthetic nootropics. And then we talked about the natural nootropics. One of our favorites is the one called Pure, made by Organifi. We actually use it before every podcast. If you want to check them out and check out some of their other organic supplements, go to Organifi.com/MindPump and use the code MindPump for 20% off. Then we talked about the incredibly dense amounts of tree and plant jizz in the air, otherwise known as pollen.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
All over your face, Justin.
Impregnated.
Then we talked about how giving up meat may not positively affect climate change like some of them people will have us believe. When you look at all factors, it's far more complicated than people think. I brought up a study on aspartame, the European, it's just easy for me to say, food
That's
organization.
What I'm at in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm up here.
The food organization has revealed that a lot of the negative studies on aspartame were thrown out. They only considered the good ones. So maybe it's not as safe as they say. We talked about how the government is looking to ban YouTube autoplay because, the government knows what's best for us.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Do as you're told. We talked about parents hacking college admissions to get their kids in. Sneaky, dirty parents. I talked about my new focus on improving my mobility, and that's it. Then we get into the fitness portion of this episode, and this is where we answer fitness questions. Here's the first one. This person wants to know if we ever had a desire when we were personal trainers to specialize in a certain type of training, so to specialize in a specific type, and how did that change our careers? So we give advice to fitness professionals, whether you should or should not specialize and which areas will probably give you the best chance of success. The next question we answered was, what are the benefits of dropping the weight with each successive set, or adding weight with each successive set, or keeping the weight the same? Do they all affect the body differently? Is it irrelevant? Or is there some value? So we talk all about which one you should do and when. The next fitness question was, how do we approach treating our kids with food? In other words, do we tell them, hey, if you finish all your dinner, you'll have a treat? We talk all about food relationships in that part of this episode. And the final question, this person wants to know what our steps for recovery are after going too hard in a workout. And we talk about the signs that we look for that tell us that we might have gone a little too far with our workouts. Also, this month, this is the only time we've ever done this ever, MAPS Prime and MAPS Prime Pro, the two Prime programs, both are 50% off. These are two of our more expensive, valuable programs, and they're valuable because, well, first off, MAPS Prime teaches you how to set your body up, how to prime it properly before your workout. This will make your current workout far more effective. So if you spend 10 minutes priming your body properly, you're going to get better results from your squats, your deadlifts, your bench presses, all the exercises you do in your workout. Now, MAPS Prime Pro, well, that's correctional. It's correctional exercise. So if you want to improve your mobility, prevent injury, or try to figure out why the heck your shoulder hurts or your knee hurts or your hips bother you, why you can't deadlift right, why you can't squat properly, that's MAPS Prime Pro. And if you're a personal trainer, both of those programs are extremely valuable for you and your clients. So they're really, really good tools. Both those programs, half off. This is the only time we've ever done this, and I don't think we'll be doing this.
Excited.
I don't think we'll be doing this again anytime soon. So here's what you do to get the discount. Go to mapsfitnessproducts.com and use the code PRIME50. That's PRIME50 for the discount. Act now. Also, I do like to listen to podcasts, and one of my favorite podcasts is the Jordan Harbinger Show. Now, Jordan, good friend of Mind Pump, he's actually in the studio with us right now. You do a phenomenal job interviewing people, excellent job. In fact, we learn from you, but you also do episodes kind of by yourself. And one episode in particular, episode 205, you call it the deep dive. And this was about purpose. Like, what do you do if you have a sense of purpose, but then all of a sudden you think my purpose sucks or this is hard or whatever? This was a great episode.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate this. This is near and dear to my heart because a lot of people who want to become, like even you guys, right? You start this, you build this amazing studio, and then there's got to be days where you're like, I don't want to do this, or like this is a drag, or I'm feeling bad about this. You wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and that's when your business is going well. When your business is not going well, and you're grinding and you're not making any money, and there's other people that are kicking your butt and competing with you and driving you underwater, you start to think like, what did I do? Oh, maybe this isn't right for me because it sucks, and my purpose is supposed to be great and grand and fun and amazing and energizing because you're looking at all these a-holes on Instagram who are always having so much fun, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, no, let's be real about this. Sometimes when it starts to become a job, that's when we start to dig and do our best work. And sometimes when it starts to become routine, that's when we realize, oh, this is the reality of the situation. Now I get to focus on what I like doing, and all the stuff that I don't like doing, I can figure out how to hire for this or how to systemize my business. It's kind of like when the honeymoon phase of your business or of your new career, your job, you don't have to own your own business to have this. It's when that starts to wear off, what do you do to hang in there and then regain that energy and keep going? Because even if you're whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, or you run a Mind Pumps media studio, you're going to go through this dip, and you need to know how to handle it.
It's normal, and I found this episode inspiring. So if you're trying to find your purpose, or if you found your purpose, and now you're questioning whether or not that's actually your purpose, make sure you check out episode 205 of the Jordan Harbinger podcast.
Thanks, guys.
I could see a market for a party drug. I really do. I could really see.
No, that's what Aubrey failed at. Remember?
Well, that doesn't mean
he had that idea, and Joe Rogan shot it down and said
his was a party recovery drug.
Yeah, let's
no.
I'm talking about Alpha Brain, and boom, on it was created.
No. I'm not talking about a recovery supplement. I'm talking about a party supplement. Like, take this
to enhance your
and go party.
Your fun.
Yes, dude. And
Isn't
it would
that
have
called MDMA.
It would have. It would be legal, Justin.
Oh, you're just kidding.
But it would have like.
Yeah, what's the legal version look like?
Oh, I mean, it would be full of stimulants and feel good chemicals and stuff like that. And you take it and you're gonna feel fucking like and you're gonna feel more social and
a pre-workout. Well, how would that be different than a pre-workout?
How would it be
alcohol.
different?
Yeah,
marketing.
Oh, that's all your stuff.
Of course. That's how it always is.
Well, that's not one of your best ideas.
Pre-party. we developed a pre-party market.
Pre-party.
Yeah.
It's the alcohol before the alcohol.
I think that's already a thing right now, is to take pre-workout before you go out and do some shit.
Really?
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's a thing.
That's
I mean,
hilarious.
we used to mix
Stupid.
like speed stack with fucking shots before going out.
Oh my god!
Wow,
No,
dude, that's gnarly.
My.
Bro, I had refrigerators of it in my house. Of course I did.
You got to
shit.
get rid of it, right?
Yeah, and I'm 25 and going out to the bars with my buddies on Friday, so absolutely we rolled the speed stack out through some freaking vodka.
I did the Red Bull vodkas for sure, so that's not like a huge leap
Dude,
from that.
I used to buy pure ephedra tablets. So they were 25 milligrams of ephedra alkaloids, which was by law the most you could put in a tablet. So I'd buy those. I'd buy separate caffeine, and then I'd go to the grocery store and I'd buy aspirin, because that's the combination. That's the ECA Stack.
Yeah.
And I would you'd smash that before whatever. And I'll tell you what, it makes me marvel at the resilience of the human heart. Because I mean,
such a bad idea.
You think,
bro? I mean, alcohol combined with that.
Hopefully, it doesn't shut down at 50 for us.
Maybe not. Well, I mean, I'll say this on this podcast right now. If I ever die early,
that's why.
Don't be like, oh, see, he's a wellness guy and he died early. No. I was a miracle. I lived as long as I did.
Yeah,
I made it.
We're trying to repair the damage from our entire childhood.
Dude.
Speaking of Pure, I know that Organifi Pure, we have almost every single podcast episode, right? We just ended up pounding ours before we got started here. What would you say? Because you're out of the three of us, you are definitely the supplement guy who continues, even though you're an anti-supplement guy.
I call myself a recovering addict.
Yeah,
I'm still recovering.
You still use them. You still fuck around with them. Of all the brands, of all the things that we mess with, what do you think you probably which ones do you use the most consistently?
What do I use the most on a consistent basis?
Yeah.
Supplement wise, I use the Pure before every podcast and before every interview.
Right. Is there anything that you use more than that?
Probably not. I mean, the green juice I take a lot when I travel. because I've noticed that if I don't get my greens in, it starts to affect my digestion negatively. And it's a substitute. And now it's not an equal substitute. So actually somebody DM'd me and said, how much green juice would I have to drink to make up for my lack of vegetables? I don't think there's any amount. I think you're not going to get an equal trade, but it's better than nothing.
Right.
So that's when I'll use that. The Immune, I've been using.
I just used that yesterday. For
Did
the first
you?
Time. Yeah. Because I was starting to get a sore throat. So last night I had some zinc lozenges, and then I took
How do you feel now?
Yeah, I feel good.
Yeah. So actually, there's. I was coming in today to work, and I'm looking around, and the sun's shining through, and you just see plant jizz everywhere. Just, and I'm talking about pollen.
Oh, that tree semen. It's floating.
Yeah, they're trying to fertilize everybody, and I'm just walking through it all, and I'm like, man, this is terrible. Rachel shows up, and she's poor girl. She's like, I can't breathe. There's too much.
Well, I appreciate our homie next door who cleans off the sidewalk every day, but the only drawback is he uses one of those fucking blowers.
Kicks it up right when we're walking in.
And it's always when I'm just getting to work, dude. I was rolling up, he was doing it again. I'm like, fuck, bro.
Oh man,
I feel so bad because I don't want to say anything because I'm like,
no, you want to encourage it.
yeah, no, like I totally
great.
appreciate the love and taking care of the front of our shop and stuff. I think that's awesome. But I'm like, god damn, dude, it kills my allergies.
Yeah.
Dude, so for me, the pure, remember we were messing with all those different nootropics? We were really trying to make one land. And I was just not, I was trying really hard, maybe this one
You don't
works.
like
maybe
them.
Dude, did not like it at all. And it would leave me with a bit of a headache or
same thing with
something
Doug.
later. And,
Same thing.
And honestly, this is the only one that consistently, we've been on it for a while.
Well,
it's good.
The ones that I had you guys try back then were the synthetic nootropics, piracetam, aniracetam,
Yeah, I didn't do well on those either.
oxiracetam. I had you guys try all the different versions, and I can see how they can work for some people, but for me, if I use them consistently, I don't start to feel good. I just don't. So for me, I'll use a synthetic one every great once in a while, and I don't see a lot of value. Some people swear by them, and I know Doug. I gave him to Doug a bunch of times, and every single time he gets a migraine. It just doesn't. And even though I'll give him choline with it and all the stuff you're supposed to have to fuel the extra whatever that's happening in your brain, without getting too complicated, he still gets a headache. Here's what's interesting though about the racetam class of nootropics. So I was when I was getting deep into it, I was reading all this research on it. They show in animal studies that it actually prevents the come down, the negative effects that happen post methamphetamine use or post MDMA use. So people who use drugs like MDMA, they'll take it and then they'll do the piracetam. I think they do it before, a little bit during, and then after. And they don't get the same come down. And I'm reading all these anecdotes and stuff, but there's animal stuff. Anyway, it's kind of fascinating. I'm not advocating for that, by the way. If you're listening to me right now and you're like, I'm going to try that, yeah, at your own risk. I just thought it was a fascinating study.
Well, speaking of animals, did you hear about the whole claim of how much the green gas emissions from
green gas?
I mean,
CO2.
CO2 emissions.
That's what Justin makes.
Yeah, I did make green CO2 gas.
The CO2 emissions from farming, agriculture, and if we were to go vegan, that it would make this big difference. That's been a common theme that's been in the vegan community for the last year or so. They've been
a myth.
Yeah, so there's this article that Jackie shared that I was reading that I thought was pretty interesting. They said when you break it down and you do the math, not only is the amount it's responsible for grossly exaggerated, but if every meat eater were to switch over to become a vegan or vegetarian, the amount the effort that they would have to go out to get vegetables, you would emit more of that in your car and shit like that.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Would counter it. And they said literally you're talking about maybe a 2% difference that it would make from being a meat eater going.
That's the problem. And also, I think this. And this is from a fitness professional standpoint. If you're going vegan, and people who are listening right now who are vegans, who are serious about it and have been doing it a long time, it requires a great deal of planning and care. You have to understand what kind of foods to eat so that you avoid nutrient deficiencies. You have to know how to supplement properly. Because there are certain things that are just very difficult to get from plants. And so when you're talking about the average American who puts no effort and thought into eating anyway, and you convince them to go vegan, you're going to deal with a lot of health problems. You just are. Now, those health problems, how much money is that going to cost us? How much problems is that going to cost us down the line? So we have to look at all factors and include the unintended consequences. And here's another good example. This is another good analogy, and I'll use something that's totally different. There's been a debate about minimum wage laws and whether or not those are damaging to business. Now, economists will tell you that, yeah, of course, you artificially raise the price of labor, you're going to have less of it, so it's going to cause problems. And then people will come out and bring studies and say, look, this town over here raised minimum wage, by $2, and they added 10,000 jobs. Therefore, minimum wage had no effect. Raising minimum wage had no effect on the jobs. But the problem with that is we don't know how many jobs could have been added if they didn't do that. So maybe instead of 10,000, we would have added 15 or 20,000. And that's the problem with arguments that sometimes other sides make or each side makes, is they don't look at the whole picture. So going back to climate change, currently, let's say we reduced greenhouse gas emissions by, I'll make up a number. I don't really know what the number would be, but let's just say we reduce it by 10% worldwide. Well, that would cost a lot of money. It would cost a lot of money because it's less efficient. It's less efficient at the moment. Technology doesn't make solar power as efficient as oil. It doesn't make a lot of these things just as efficient. It would cost more money. So now let's look at third world countries or emerging economies where people just made it out of poverty, because we literally lifted, in the 20th century, we saw more people lifted out of poverty worldwide than we saw in the previous all of human civilization. It was just tremendous growth that we saw in the 20th century. So if we increase cost and it made things more expensive and less efficient and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we may very well still see way more death, because you have all these people who just made it out of poverty. Now we're going to knock them back into poverty. And wealthy people might not see this because we can afford to spend more money on trying to produce less emissions. There may be less productions of medicines as a result and less efficient in other markets. And so we have to look at the whole picture. It's not as easy as saying that's biodegradable, that one isn't. Look at the whole chain. Wait a minute, what does it take to produce that? How do we store it? How do we ship it? What does that look like? What is that causing in terms of efficiency of how we transport things and all these different things? We have to take these. So my point is, I don't know the answer, and it's far more complex than the politicians will lead you to believe. So right. When they say things like, this is good for the environment, a lot of times look and see who's in their back pocket. A lot of these politicians are being funded by companies that benefit and are asking for handouts and subsidies. Like these solar panel companies in California, they get massive subsidies from California. And so it only makes sense that they're going to, petition politicians and, donate to them to promote this thing. And politicians are always going to try and sell a message that sounds really good. They're never going to tell you, hey, it's more complicated than that. We think it might work, and they're never going to.
Well, that's my problem with politics in general. We start creating bumper stickers to simplify really complex, nuanced, items and things that we all need to discuss and put forth our own solutions towards and listen to each other. No, let's divide everybody and just make slogans out of it.
They're trying to win your vote, and they're very effective at.
Well, the reality is a majority of people won't do their research anyways.
No, and that's the problem. Yep. That's the problem. If you actually look deep at the research and you start to account for all the different factors, you start to slowly realize whoa, this is way bigger and more complicated of a problem than we realize. Those of us who are worldwide considered wealthy, which is most Americans, the vast majority of Americans, if we look at things a little differently than if an emerging country that just got out of poverty. You have China, had I don't know how many hundreds of millions of people that came out of poverty in the 20th century. Doesn't take much to knock them back into that situation, and how many people die as a result of poverty and low access to clean water and medicine and all that stuff. So we have to kind of, we got to look at all the different factors and see what it looks like. It's just really complicated. Speaking of complicated things, so this article was released recently. So University of Sussex, which is a big university in Europe, claims that the European Food Authority has been bottling up alarming data surrounding aspartame, one of the most popular artificial sweeteners, for a long time. So they found that they analyzed all these studies and looked at these reports, and they found that the European Food Safety Authority focused their final assessment almost entirely on the positive studies. So out of the 73 papers that deemed aspartame dangerous, they were all thrown out by the European Food Safety Authority. 84% of the studies that provided no evidence of its harm were the ones that 84% of those studies were considered. So like, wait a minute. All these studies that say that there may be issues, why did we throw them all out?
Please, can you set up a time where you and Lane can talk on Insta Story?
Oh, I'd love to.
It needs all about the money.
Yeah, I think it would be just a healthy conversation to have you guys to have and let other people listen to. And it's great because you guys are both friends and you both respect each other's opinion on stuff. But I think a lot of people will learn from that, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's big money in these artificial sweeteners. Massive money. And the way they passed and became legal, I don't necessarily have to go into it, but look up how aspartame became legal. Look at the people behind it, how it got approved. And you can see that doesn't necessarily mean that aspartame is bad for you, that artificial sweeteners are bad for you, granted. But it does highlight a lot of shady shit. And in my experience, when there's a lot of shady shit, that usually goes deeper. Like what you see is only the surface, and it goes a lot deeper than that. And then, of course, the way, in my experience as a trainer, I know that valuing food for its taste only is a path down,
slippery slope.
Yeah, bad behaviors around food and bad relationships to food. And for people who are super interested in just their aesthetics, sometimes having the natural barrier of calories is a good thing. It's great sometimes when you say, hey, look, they'll look at it, okay, there's some calories, there's some negatives. But artificial sweeteners kind of paints the picture that there's no negatives. So it's like, but there's no calories, so I can have as much as I want. And it just kind of reinforces that behavior.
Well, that's why I want the two of you guys to discuss it, because it's
too convenient of an idea.
I think that we get painted sometimes in this corner of like, oh, we're anti all that stuff, and it's not really that. It's an argument of what's the science support as far as is it bad for us or not bad for us, and it's more so the behavioral side that I think that we argue and discuss more, which is the part that I think a lot of this show has always been about, is that the fitness industry has done a really good job of like, what rep range is best for this, and what exercise.
Ignore the most important stuff.
Right, exactly. Ignore the psychological piece that where the person that's in their head that can't get to the gym for some reason, or ignore the reason why the person is driven to get to the gym in the first place, and like what drives all these bad behaviors for the other 23 hours of the day. And so,
because that's less arguable. Yeah, right. Like when you're getting into like the studies out there, you could pull from both sides pretty easily. And so I don't know, I feel like some people are just drawn to that because then it's like you have, a certain position that's pretty firm. You can argue a lot more effectively when you have like this data that you're spewing off.
Well, look, and this is a fact. You'll find many studies that have correlated weight gain and fat gain with artificial sweeteners. Now, does this mean that artificial sweeteners are causing their bodies to somehow store more body fat? It's highly unlikely, okay? There may be some strange mechanism that, in the way it influences potentially the microbiome. This is all speculation. But it's highly likely that the artificial sweeteners themselves are not causing weight gain. Now, why are they correlated with weight gain? Because they strengthen and encourage behaviors that make people eat more food.
Yeah.
This is why. So people who consume a lot of artificial sweeteners, they tend to reinforce this behavior where food's value is how tasty it is. And so it encourages that behavior. So when you take a bunch of obese people with a bad relationship to food and you tell them, hey, just have artificial sweeteners from now on. So they don't lose weight because they replace it with other calories, and sometimes they gain weight.
Here's this calorie-free waffle.
Yeah,
it's a better idea.
Exactly, and I know in our space, especially with the people who work in fitness, oh man, the worst eating behaviors I've ever seen.
Yeah,
they're terrible. And what do you get with these competitors? Oh, it's 0 calories. Therefore, I'm going to have 15 of them a day, or everything is going to be sweetened. And to the point where they can't even I know a lot of competitors that don't like water. They have to put, what is it called? That powder that makes it taste good. That's really popular. Crystal Light. Yeah, or whatever. Like, oh, it's no calories. It tastes good.
I need it to taste like something.
Yeah, you're just making things worse for yourself, and nobody ever talks about that.
Well, along the lines of more controversial topics, curious to what you guys think about this because I thought this was an interesting article. There's a senator from Missouri who is trying to pass a bill right now that will not allow YouTube to use the technology that allows people to do an autoplay on YouTube.
I saw that, yeah.
So it's to reduce binging. And so this is why I wanted to talk about it because, one, I agree with him. What I don't agree with is government getting involved to pass a bill and make and
because I actually enjoy that.
Yeah. Right, and mandating it. Right, I don't think this is something that we need government to get involved. So this is why it's a cool topic is because here's an area where I agree with the person who's trying to get this bill passed. Like I agree with what he's trying to do.
You agree. It does help. It does encourage binging. That's why it's there.
Right. Like exactly. It encourages binging. I even think that's going to be a major problem in the future for us that these kids that are just addicted to these games. I mean, I'm seeing it right now with my nephew and my brother-in-law having to deal with that. And like it's really tough, man. Once you kind of let the cat out of the bag, like and these kids start that addiction to the phone,
right?
Watching parents try and reverse that is crazy, right? Yeah. So I do understand trying to put things in places that make it that much more challenging for the kids to go binging. But here's an example where I don't believe that's the responsibility of our government.
Put that back on the parents,
and it's not. It won't be effective. It just won't be effective.
Right.
It's a waste. It will be a waste of money, a waste of taxpayers' money. So it's virtue signaling from a senator. Hey, I care about something. Look at this. Vote for me or whatever. It's also a way for government to get their hands into regulating these markets because it's always that way, by the way. When they step in to do something, it opens the door. Now they can regulate more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And now think to yourself, why would the government want their hands in something like YouTube? It's a very powerful medium.
Right.
Extremely powerful medium. And, of course, they would want to have their hands on something that they can influence to get what they want or get people to think the way that they want. And they already do that very effectively anyway. No, I'll leave them out. I think leave them out. There's no business in that. It's my fucking choice whether or not I'm going to keep watching this or not. And at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. Don't let them go down that path of, trying to be your moral regulator or whatever.
That being said, though, the time is coming and it's coming fast that these are the types of conversations that are making its way all the way up to the government. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see what we see unfold with this generation that's coming up right now.
Totally.
And I think just the feedback from customers, like if you sign a petition amongst customers, like you let companies know this is something that you're concerned about. Like I'm sure they would love to hear, more from their customers' experience and how they can improve.
We have so much power. It's us that has the power. Do you know what would happen if everybody just told YouTube we don't fucking like that?
Yeah.
They would change it. So it's like, hey, man, that's what people want. Now, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. Let's educate people. But then at the end of the day, it's up to them.
They'll be more successful. It's the same thing with, they had this whole issue with, on the kids section where certain ads would come in that were inappropriate and they want to know that because that's going to mess their entire business up.
Bro,
it's persistent.
It's like you're on the Titanic and then you're trying to use Scotch tape to plug up the hole at the iceberg. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to stop what's happening with technology with your regulation. Good luck. It ain't going to happen. So educate and
unfortunately, what will cause it or what will drive it is the backlash that will happen from all the.
Speaking of regulation, so you remember back when they had that whole scandal with trying to get people into universities and paying for all that,
the parents were.
Yeah, they're finding a way to kind of pay to get certain people to get them in.
Terrible.
So there's more follow up to that, I guess. There's been a hack in terms of wealthier families being able to pass along guardianship. So for their kids, so that way, now they're with Aunt Mary or whoever who is under a totally different tax bracket, so that way they can receive the grants that they normally couldn't underneath, their wealthy, successful parents.
Wait a minute. So what you're saying is, let me get this straight. So I make too much money to get government assistance or grants or loans, whatever, right?
Yes.
So I then will assign one of my poor family members to be the guardian. Therefore, they qualify now for.
Yes.
Wow, that's slimy.
So slimy, right? And this has happened to a couple different families. They've already caught in Chicago area, like, doing those shenanigans. But it's just such shitty behavior. It's like, I can't. It's gross to watch like stuff like that happen.
Yeah, the irony is that the reason why college is so fucking expensive is they've made it so easy to get money for college. You've got all this available money, so colleges are just expensive as hell, and it's almost for no reason. I mean, if we didn't do that, they would have to bring the prices down.
When you talk about things like that, it always makes me wonder, like, if it was possible for us to tease out, and I think of like welfare too. Like, how many people has it really helped, and like then how many people are abusing the ability to use it, right? Like, how many people are taking advantage of the system because they can?
There's always going to be that.
Yeah, of course, right? And there's always going to be and there's always going to be somebody who it was life changing for them. There's always going to be somebody who they lost their job, welfare bridged the gap between the other one. It saved their family, kept everyone together, and it's a crazy hoopla story. But then there's also going to be the other side of somebody who manipulates the shit out of the system to do that.
It's not even it's not even necessarily about the manipulation, although that's terrible. It's that okay, let me put it this way. Imagine if the government came out and said everybody needs to own a car. Cars are so important. We need them for transportation, and people need to go to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass these laws to make getting a car loan pretty much guaranteed. Like, you're going to get a car loan to help you out because everybody needs a car. So now money to buy cars is more readily available. It's much easier. How many more expensive cars would be sold than are sold maybe today? Far more. And so car manufacturers would compete for that money by creating more and more expensive cars. So I argue that people wouldn't need to get loans for these expensive schools if we stepped out and allowed these places to have to fight for our real money,
compete for the students.
And let's be honest, we're in a position now in modern times where technology allows information to be shared almost for free. It doesn't make any sense why a book costs $300 at a university, or why it doesn't make any sense.
They're so overinflated, like these college campuses, and like how much money they're asking out of students now. It's absurd. It needs to be changed.
The supply of money is too high. The demand is artificial too, because we've sold so hard to kids that the only way to be successful is to go to college. And they use statistics like if you go to college and you graduate, you're going to earn this much more for the rest of your life than if you don't. But the problem, again, with that statistic, that research, which is accurate, that's accurate research, but the problem is you're lumping all the kids who didn't go to college into the same category. What they need to do is they need to take the kids who didn't go to college but who had they knew what they wanted to do.
Right.
They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they worked hard towards it. So they had a goal.
Trade, or they created their own business.
Whatever. Compare those kids to the kids who go to college. At the very least, they are like, I know what I want to study. At the very least, right? So compare those.
Or at the very least, they see value in education and learning and growth.
Right. So
I think that's more the important thing, is because compare the group of kids that didn't go to college but then still learned and wanted to grow and better themselves versus the ones that didn't go to college, or they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, because now you lump in a bunch of fucking dropouts and losers and people who had no drive and no ambition or whatever. Sure. Take those people out, compare like to like, and I bet you know what you're going to find. And then factor in debt. Here's another one.
Oh yeah,
factor in debt. That's
a big factor.
Don't just look at earnings, because sure, you may earn more money, but now you have $200,000 worth of debt, and the guy over here has no debt, and within 2 years he's making as much as you are, but you still have $150,000 worth of debt left over or whatever. Factor all of that in, and I bet you what you'll end up finding is, unless you're going to do specific types of degrees and careers, it's less valuable to go to college than when you don't go to college, so long as you're driven, motivated, and you know what you want to do. I bet if you factor it all out, that's what you'll find. Because there are careers like that. Like, you go to college and you get a degree in liberal arts or world history or anthropology, and you come out with, like, that ain't going to make you any fucking money. You're going to be in debt. It's just a fact, right?
Yeah.
If you go to college for like tech or, certain fields require it, medicine or whatever, then it might make some sense. So that's what you got to really look at. We've oversold it. So now kids are like, I have to go, can't afford it, get a loan, government guarantees that I get a loan. So now I'm graduate 4 years later, $100,000 in debt, whatever.
You have to go in with the intent that, like, okay, this is gonna apply towards something. This is not just me wasting time and like finding myself. Like, you got to go in with a plan and then apply that plan in real life, and that's gonna make you your income.
Dude, imagine a smart kid. Think about it this way. Imagine if a smart kid didn't go to college, and I'll use myself as an example. Wants to be in the fitness industry. Goes and works in the fitness industry, is passionate, does a good job, starts making decent money after about a year or two. I know I did. Started making decent money, was smart, has no debt, right? Because they're going in there learning and making money. So they have no debt. They're starting at a positive. And then they start to buy property or start to invest that property. Meanwhile, his twin brother or his twin sister is still in college. They're year 2 or year 3. They're racking up debt. They're not making any money. 4 years later, they graduate with $30,000 worth of debt or whatever, however, $100,000 worth of debt, whatever. But the twin brother who's worked now has saved money, has invested, and sure, they may graduate and come out making maybe a little bit more, but start doing the math. Start calculating the debt and what's happening. Who's in a better position? I don't know.
Well,
I think it's a lot closer than you think.
That's me and all my friends. I'm the only one out of my group of friends that doesn't have his degree or his master's, right? Like most all my friends, some of them have continued on even further than that. So you have a lot of buddies of mine that have gone, and they're all successful, right? So everyone's doing well. I don't have any.
They're all hardworking, smart people.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it took them a good 5 years to even come close to where I was already at when I was 21 years old. And then,
it puts you in a massive hole.
Right. And then on top of that, they're all
speak to that all
sitting
day.
on $30,000 to $100,000 in debt that they still have today.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy to me that there's, and you just chalk it up as forever. I make this payment of $180 to $300, depending on how big or massive your loan was. That's just forever. They just chalk that up like, I make $300 less a month because it just pays towards that student loan.
Well, and in some fields, what's really interesting, because I told this to my son's he's very academic. He gets straight A's, loves the STEM topics, so science, technology, math. He's really good at math. And so we talked about college, and I'm very honest with him. And I said, well, it depends what you want to do. If it's a field that's going to be profitable and it's worth going into debt, then 100% you should do it. If not, that we need to look at other options because you have to consider. And this is just, I think you need to teach kids this anyway because they're going to learn this fucking lesson the hard way, whether you teach them or not. So I'm trying to have this conversation with them. But here's the reality, even with tech, you go to school to get a degree in technology. You come out 4 years later, 6 years later with a master's or whatever. The stuff you learned the previous 4 years or 5 years, it's already obsolete. Yep. It's really the last year that you might even be able to apply. And so a lot of tech companies are doing now is they're just starting to, pluck okay, we want sharp people who are early in their degree.
And we indoctrinate them in their system.
Yeah, or we'll put you through our training course and we're actually going to pay you through the whole process. That's the way I look at it. And tech's only advancing faster and faster. Do you really think a 5-year degree in technology that what you learned the first 4 years that it might not even apply? Right. You know what I'm saying?
Just look at nutrition.
Oh, terrible.
We were talking a little bit the other day. I was a lawyer. We just scratched the surface of it, but just to if you have a dietetics degree, think about the relevant information that you're going to receive even now in college versus what we've all found through all these different people we've talked to that have completely different paths that brought them to different answers.
Dude, you have to look at it that way. It's okay, I'm passionate, I'm driven, I know what I want to do, so I'm not going to go to college. And then you start working and you're like, man, I'm only making $20 an hour right now, my first year. But compare to where you would be if you were going to school. You wouldn't be making anything per hour. You'd be costing you per hour. So look at all the things. Look at it from a wide lens. None of this is an excuse to be a lazy, non-driven individual. I don't give a fuck what you do. If you're lazy and you don't have any drive, you're probably not going to be successful regardless of which direction you go. I think that's the common denominator, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of drive, I think mobility's on the horizon for me. Yeah, I'm really starting to take it
kind of mobility, or trying to be serious about it.
Nah, man, I'm trying to take it real seriously.
You're going all in, dude.
Yeah, I'm really starting to feel like it's something I want. Not that I just have to do it, but something that I really, really want to do. And I know this because I'm doing it every day now. Versus post.
It's all your own idea, yeah.
So I've done a couple things. You want one thing that I did that's kind of funny?
What?
So, and I thought, I wonder if this will help me. So Jessica has these toe spacers that that they put on that women will wear
for toenails, and they paint.
Yeah,
the toenails.
to prevent, to have their toenails dry or whatever.
Selfie to prove it.
Yeah, so I have this one that's made out of silicone, and so what I'm doing is I'll wear it at night when I'm at home, and then what it's doing is it's making me more aware of my toe placement. So then when I take them off, and while I'm wearing them, I'm actively activating my toes, trying to separate them, trying to strengthen them.
Does that help you like spread them out a little bit more? Just like having them like in that in range.
Sure, it makes total sense. Just like a yoga block for like the 90-90 or whatever.
Right. It's helping me connect.
Yeah.
And it's funny when I take them off, then I feel like my toes are more connected.
Oh, I'm curious to see how that.
I don't just leave them on though. It's not like I just leave them on.
There's a rebranded product waiting to happen. Yeah. You know how that works, right? Yeah. Like every time, you get something like from a beauty product or something like, oh, weird, bro. Until use this and then slap fitness on it, sell it for like $50 more.
Well, dude, if you look at my feet, my toes are all crunched together, and my feet got real big, real young. It's probably because I was wearing tight shoes and shit, and it's like. They're not connected, man. So I'm like, I got to start there, dude. I got to start with my toes, start connecting to those, and then
work your way up, man.
Yeah. So yesterday I was doing, I did about 45 minutes of pure mobility. I used the vibrating plate over at Club Sport. Ooh. That's got some value, man, for mobility. It does.
Well, it helps you get into that position for sure.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, the biggest thing for me was. I was so relentless about how much of it
every day, right?
Yeah, it's kind of cool to hear where you're at now because it took that switch for me that like I had to almost become competitive about it.
Yep.
Like it couldn't just be like, oh, I need to do this for me. It's better. This is better for me. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have as much impact.
Yeah, I suck at mobility. My feet pronate. Like I've got these issues going on. Like let's see if I can really move this fucking needle. And it took the priority over everything else that I was doing. And
There's no other way, dude.
Right. It took that commitment. It took that commitment to move the needle as far as I moved the needle in the time that I moved it. And it's really hard because I get people that DM me a lot and ask like, oh, like, how did you get there? And it's like, there's not like this generic answer I can give you of like, oh, do this exercise and do this before you work out. It's like, no, it's like, it was on my mind all the time. And any time that I had downtime where I could be, I mean, even as stupid as things as like, I made it all of a sudden this hat, like, so my right foot was the one that was pronating really bad. And so just like you're talking about connecting to your toes and wiggling your feet, I made sure that every time I peed, I did that.
Yeah.
So when I go to the restroom and I'm standing there,
start moving them.
Yeah, I'm moving my feet and I'm making sure that I'm rolling out on the outsides of my foot and not allowing them. So it was just like, I just made this thing where when I was teaching at Orange Theory back then, I would get down in this squatted position and I do kind of like the combat stretch and I would be doing these things all the time and I started to know. And once I started noticed it moving the needle a little bit.
You're more motivated.
Then I was motivated. Then I was like, oh, okay, wow, I'm getting better actually. Like then once I kind of saw a little bit of progress, that's what got me fired up about it. And then I was all in and just committed to kept getting better. And I still am. I mean, I don't have the biggest thing right now for me is the thoracic mobility. That's the last piece of the puzzle. I feel like I think I crushed the ankle mobility. I've crushed the hip mobility. And what's cool is now that I put all that work in, now all I have to do is like get in that position every once in a while, and I don't have to
just remind the body.
I don't have to do all the work that I was doing before. I don't do nowhere near as much mobility work as what I was doing just a year ago. Mm-hmm. All I do now is I do exercises that promote that mobility.
Yeah,
like
it's less of like scheduled mobility workouts and more of every day, several times a day.
Yeah, whenever
do
you
5 to 10 minutes. Just all day long while you're thinking about it. Because the big things that I'm focusing on now are my foot, ankle. Foot and ankle are the big ones.
Right.
Hips, I'm always kind of aware of, and my neck. I have terrible rotation in my neck. It's from jiu-jitsu. I do a lot of neck cranking and crazy shit. And Jessica the other day, she was helping me with it because she mentored under Dr. Brink for a little while.
Yeah.
And so she learned a few things. And she goes, well, let me take you through a couple tests. And this was eye-opening for me. I'm doing my neck rotation, and she's testing my range of motion. And she laughs. And I'm like, I'm like, why are you laughing? And she goes, come on, stop playing around. And she was serious. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You're playing around. She goes, wait, is that for reals? Is that as far as you can rotate your neck? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, honey, we need to fix this because it's going to be terrible in like 10 years. I'm like, fuck. All right. She was totally serious. She thought I was fucking with her.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's literally how bad my neck is.
I had an athletic trainer when I was playing football and like was trying to stretch my hamstring and started like laughing in front of everybody because like he pushed and like nothing happened.
This is why I got so defensive about that post the other day that we just recently talked about from that coach about the not squatting, and I just feel so passionately about that because that type of message is what would have validated me not working toward those things. Like, I'll just lunge now and I'll just leg press now, and I can still build a aesthetic good body. And what I know is that all the work that I put into getting to the place where I could squat ass to grass, like that is what's kept me
super valuable.
Oh, unbelievably. I have no idea where I would be today and where I would be 10 years from now had I not done that. And now it's become so important to me. And
you're not going to live there forever. And I think that's where the definitive line is drawn for me. It's like it is so valuable, but also you build on that. So you go through that process to get to a place where you're functioning optimally again. And so now your exercises feel even better. Everything gets enhanced.
Yeah. I just don't want to be as stiff as my dad. My dad is just, he's always been naturally strong, but because of the type of labor he's done since he was a kid and how much he's beat himself up, he's got some issues with his spine and all that stuff, but he also does nothing to improve his mobility or stretching, regardless of how much I badger him. And he's just fucking tight, dude. He is just tight, rotation and hamstring and everything. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to move like that when I'm 60 years old. I need to be able to move better.
Yeah.
Because I see how much problems he bought himself one of those massage chairs, like the real expensive ones that
oh yeah, that like needs you in your back.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And this is so hard for me to do with my parents. It's so difficult. It's so hard for me to like not to remain neutral and not be an asshole. Oh, yeah. So he's like, we go over there,
Same.
I go over there to hang out with him, and he's like, oh, he goes, Salvatore, let me show you something I got. And he shows me this chair, and I sit in it. It's expensive. It costs him, I don't know how many, couple $1,000s or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, he goes, Sal, I sit on the chair. It fixed everything. I have no pain. I said,
everything.
I said, so you only have to use it one time? You never have to use it again? He's like, he looks at me. He goes, no, I use it every night. I said, so that means it's not fixing anything. It's kind of solving, and of course I'm being an asshole about it. And I'm like, listen, this is what happens to your body. You need to correct the problem, not the root issue or whatever. And I could tell my dad's just like, I shouldn't have told this kid. Yeah, like, fuck it, I'm not going to share anything with you anymore. It's like when my mom's like, hey, I bought the healthy yogurt for the kids. And I look at it, I'm like, actually, Mom, this is bad. Don't give this to the kids anymore. And she's like, she wants to throw it at me.
Yeah. It's so great though. Like I'm at the point now with my dad where I'll just shame him. I'm like, you haven't been doing your 90-90. Like, look at this fat gut you got.
No, you don't.
Him. Yeah, yeah. Totally. But he, he can handle it now. Like we're on that level.
I don't even fuck with him like that, dude. We've just like the the advice that we give on the show all the time, and when we do these live,
leave it.
Yeah, it's like I've learned now that
it's the only way, man.
Yeah, and honestly, and that's like when the posting, all the stuff that I'm doing now. Like we're now getting to the point where we're approaching 40, and so it is a little inspiring for them to see like, oh shit, he's not a 22-year-old kid anymore who's doing all this stuff. It's like he's almost 40 years old and he's got mobility like that. So now to me, like I'm getting questions from like my dad and his wife, like because they'll be at my house and I do this now all the time where they're in the living room, they're sitting on the couch.
They see you do it.
I get down and I'm sitting there talking to them in a squat position and they'll be like, is that comfortable for you to be like, yeah.
Well, that's what it took. Yeah. Then once they get curious, you just like keep, planting those seeds and watering.
Well, the other thing I've done too to augment the mobility is I'm really sticking close to the 4-2-2 tempo with weights. So I'm going way lighter than I normally do. And focusing on the 4-second, negative, pause, come up, controlled, squeeze, feel the muscle connect. Because I know when I go heavy, which I can do, I'm very good at going heavy, that it just makes it harder.
The compensations.
Yeah, it makes it much harder. Yeah. So like today, I'm not going heavier than 315 for deadlifts. For me, I could blow out 20 reps with 315 if I wanted to, if I went nuts. But I'm doing 5 reps and I'm 4-second down. I'm coming up and I'm squeezing and I'm focusing on activating my feet and my hips and all that shit. And I'm actually enjoying it. That's why that's why I think that this time I'm actually going to focus on it, because it's not like, oh, this sucks. I can't wait till I can. I'm like, this is cool. It feels good. So,
working out with intent, completely different.
We'll see what happens.
Today's squad is brought to you you by MAPS Anabolic. If you're looking to maximize your overall muscle and strength, MAPS Anabolic is the perfect place to start. With a full 30-day money-back guarantee, there is absolutely zero risk. So what are you waiting for? Go to mindpumpmedia.com and get started today.
It's the motherfucking quad.
Eagle has landed.
First question is from Easy Richardson. Did any of you have a desire to specialize in a certain type of training? And if so, how did your careers change when most people seem to just want to lose weight and gain muscle?
Oh man, I think I fell in the category, and I know for sure Justin's going to agree, maybe Sal too even. When you first start getting into personal training, I think almost, maybe not everybody, but almost every trainer wants to be like a trainer for a professional sports team. I guess if you were into sports, for sure it has to be that, right? Like I wanted to train athletes so bad when I first got into it, and you quickly realize that that's a small portion of the population, and so if you're going to build your business around that, really, really tough to do. And most the guys that are connected, or girls that are connected to professional teams, it's, and not to knock them, but it's rarely ever about how great of a trainer they were, and it's more their
who you know.
Yeah, they're connected to the uncle, is the sports guy who hired them, and so it's really tough to get into that. It's
a terrible business model.
It is. It's a bad idea, and it was an idea that I thought I was going to do for a while.
I completely agree. Like I came in with that would be like the ultimate dream, right? Is to be able to train like my idols, the athletes that I looked up to, and be able to improve them and make a name for myself in terms of, working with professional athletes. And you start to do that. And like, I was working my way towards that direction, and you just start to figure out like, well, that like their schedules and the way that the small period of time you actually have with them and the amount of improvement that you can actually make is really much more based off of like how you can preserve their career. It's not about like they're already awesome, and so they're easy as hell to train. I mean, it's just like they'll do anything you ask them to do, but really that's the game, is to be able to keep them healthy and elongate their career.
Yeah, there's not a lot of money in that, even if you do a good job.
No, you're right, because it's such a sought-after job. It's like
people will do it for free.
Yeah,
think about this. If you're a professional athlete, you could pretty much have almost any trainer train you for free. Yeah. Because for that trainer, it's like it looks great on your resume.
And they don't want to pay.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no money in it at all. Now, here's just a couple things you want to consider when you're trying to think of specializing in fitness. One is, what does the market demand look like? Is this a market demand? Is there a big market demand for training people to, help them become better cyclists? Is there a big market demand for training children who are in sports? Whatever. Look at the market demand. That's number one. The second thing, and this is another one that's important, is consider the following. You will probably be your best when you're doing something you enjoy the most. Okay? So, if you fucking just absolutely love athletic training, and that is your deep passion, you're probably going to be best at it because you love it. You're going to be learning it no matter what. Yeah. In which case I say, look at the market and look a little broader and say, okay, within the market of athletics training, what's the largest market within that?
Student athletes
and kids would be
that'd be the direction.
That's what I would say, right, for that specific one. Now, for me, I went into it and I didn't really have a specific market. I just wanted to help people get more fit and get in better shape. Now, eventually, I started to specialize in training people through injury and through and people who are in advanced age. Now, it just kind of worked out that way. Personally, I enjoyed training people who were older because I love the stories that they would tell me. That's being selfish. It's 100%. Like if I sat down, if I'm training, 75-year-old Mrs. Johnson.
That's 75 years of wisdom, bro, getting dropped on you for free.
Dude, great stories. I could ask them advice. It was just great. It was great conversation. I'd learn a lot. I remember I trained one lady. She was 83 years old, and she used to be a real estate agent for the Bay Area, for San Jose and Los Angeles. And Los Gatos. And so she would tell me what it was like back then, which was fascinating to me. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this. Los Gatos, which is a very, very expensive part of Silicon Valley, back when she was doing real estate, it was like that was the sticks, man. It was like people who couldn't afford to live in San Jose would go up live in the hills of Los Gatos. I thought that was fascinating. So she would tell me all this cool stuff, and I'd learn from them. And the other reason why I found a lot of value in it is that they were consistent as fuck. The most consistent people I ever trained in my entire life were people in advanced age. You schedule Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m., they're fucking there.
Their whole days like revolves around it.
That's it. Tuesday, Thursday, 3 p.m., they're there, like, or whatever. They're not going anywhere. And if you show them value, they will pay you and forever until they can't train with you anymore. So it was like super consistent. And then in terms of referrals, holy cow. The referrals I got from my advanced age clients it was silly. Like if I trained a lady or a guy and I did a really good job, next thing you know, I was training her friends who were in the same age group. They're seeing her move better.
Now, all that being said, I think that if I'm advising a trainer, like I would advise them the same way that I would advise a fighter going into MMA. And that's like, I don't think it's in your best interest to specialize in one niche group and just be a badass at boxing or be a badass at jiu-jitsu. I think you are far better off becoming well-rounded at all modalities, because in reality, it's already hard to build a business as a personal trainer. It's not an easy career, right? There's not a lot of money being thrown around and made in this industry. So to niche yourself down to just one category of people may allow you to separate yourself in a local gym and be like, oh, he's the guy. If all the people that come in that are sports people come in, you're going to get all those clients. But then you might miss out on a lot of other clients because those other clients don't have that specific goal. And if you're pretty good at all of it, you're going to be able to help like 80 to 90% of the population. Because I've trained a lot of athletes, even though I wouldn't think that that's my specialty, because I eventually went all over the place. But I know I have enough knowledge in sports performance, and I have certifications in that arena, that I can take for sure somebody all the way up to the collegiate level and greatly, and probably even the professional level, help them more than what they're doing right now.
I'll tell you the most valuable thing, in my opinion, in personal training. The most if you want to specialize in correctional exercise
100%.
and in helping people rehab injuries and alleviate pain. Because that
covers everybody.
It covers every market.
Yeah, everything, even kids now.
Athletes, it covers old people, it covers average everyday people, it covers people who want to build muscle, burn body fat, bodybuild, athletics. It covers everything. Correctional exercise and how to get people to feel better in terms of pain. Boy, that right there, I can't think of a single category that would be you get better return on.
I think too, like, it's a good strategy to definitely like be more, take on as many different types of clients as possible, as much volume. Like you said, it's a tough market to penetrate and to really like thrive in, and to build experience and find out like what becomes sort of like what you're putting out there. A lot of times you're going to attract. And so like you're going to end up getting a specific type of a client that's going to sort of reveal itself to you. And that's kind of what happened with me, where I kept plugging away, and I would just keep taking on, new types of clients. And it was great because it's like problem solving. It's like, it's a new person that has all these new variables. I have to figure this out. And, I tended to attract a little bit more of like your busy person that like is really like type A and like wants to get everything done and have all the answers like right then and there and this. And so I'd have to calm them down and like really spell it out and draw this plan for them that made sense, that they could agree upon. And that became like, okay, I'm understanding this type of a person that like makes excuses and has no time, and like I have to like literally like put myself in a position where I'm going to cross their regular path consistently, and I have to get that consistency from them. And so I figured out how to do that and drew a business model out of that.
Yeah, no, the first point you made was really, really good. I want to reemphasize that, which is for the first, and I'll be more specific, for the first couple years of personal training, don't be picky. You can't be picky with your clients. Take them all. Yeah. Take all of the clients. I used to hate this. I'd get a trainer, brand new. Oh, here's the kind of clients I want. Really? You have none right now. Yeah. You're trying to build a business. You're going to take them all, and you're going to learn through training a lot of different people. And then as you get better, you can be a little bit more picky. But if you're new, like fucking train everybody. Learn from everybody. Build your business that way. And then little by little, I think it'll start to reveal itself in the sense of where you want to specialize yourself out to.
Next question is from VMA Mr. Black. What are the benefits or detriments of dropping weight each set, adding weight each set, or using the same weight for all sets?
Okay. Well,
there's no real detriment.
No,
first of all.
the detriment would be doing it the same method all the time.
There you go.
Yeah. So if you did whichever method you chose, so to explain to the listeners so they kind of know what they're talking about. What the question's saying. Let's say I'm doing 5 sets of bench press. Mm-hmm. One way to do it would be to start with a weight, let's say 200 pounds. And then as I fatigue, because of the next set, I'm going to be a little bit fatigued.
You shave off 10 pounds.
I go down and I go lighter with each set. So I start with 200, second set is 180, third set is 160, and so on. The other option would be to add weight, which would be I start with the weight, and then each set I go lower in reps and higher in weight. The other option that he talked about would be sticking to the same weight throughout every single set. And then there's a fourth option that he didn't talk about called pyramiding, where I go up in weight and then halfway through I go back down. Yep. Aside from the novel stimulus that it provides on the body, that's the benefit. That's where the benefit comes from.
If all things are equal as far as volume is concerned.
Yeah.
Right, because I think that it comes down to that. If you were to still plug in the formula of set, reps, and weight of those 5 sets, right? So if you would equate out what it is, and if all things are equal, that you're producing the same amount of volume as in all those 4 different ways, then really the only real benefit is to vary it and change it up every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
If one of them's now producing more volume, you're going to get more out of that. Like if you find that when you pyramid up and everything else is 5 sets, we agree that's all you're about to do, and one way you're squeezing out an extra 300 pounds of volume, well, that's currently going to benefit you until the body gets pretty efficient and adapted to that, and then you would want to move out of that, right?
Yep. I'll say that I mess with all of them, but I do tend to move up in weight with each set just because the sets serve as a warm-up each time. And not necessarily a warm-up, but more like if I'm going to work myself up to a 500-pound or 400-pound deadlift, I will typically do at least a few sets leading up to that. So one set will be 135, 225, 315, 375. Now I'm at 405, maybe 455, then 500. So I kind of use it in that type of a way.
So I train that way when doing singles, doubles, triples, and sometimes training in like a blocks of 5, right? Where we're doing 5 reps.
Heavyweight.
Yeah, heavyweight. I like that. But if I know I'm doing a workout that's all like 10, 15 rep range, I'm pretty comfortable that I know what that weight looks like on the bench for me. It's like that's 185 pretty much for me. And so I'll put 185 on right after I'll do a warm-up set or a prime.
Go right into your weight.
We'll go right into the weight.
Keep it the whole time.
And keep it the whole time, right?
I do that too, same thing.
So it depends on how, and of course I'll flip all of it on its head and do the opposite of what I'm saying right now every once in a while, just to make sure that my body isn't completely adapted to it and throw a new stimulus at it.
Yeah, especially like that, you mentioned pyramid, like I'll do that every now and then to really just as an interrupter. Like that's something that I'm like, oh yeah, it's a novel stimulus. So like, maybe I'll respond a little differently going back into adding, and I'll typically again like pretty similar to where you're talking about like doing singles, doubles, triples, like working my way up. That like to me that just feels more natural to kind of scale my way up that direction.
This is another tool that I love to use to manipulate, to really just shock the body. Where imagine you decide you're going to go to a workout and you're like, you know what, I feel like I've been stuck in this rut of doing kind of all this similar stuff. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change my tempo. I'm going to change my rest period, and I'm going to change the way I drop set or pyramid set. Man, you want to really shock the body on a workout. You could be doing the exact same exercise even and just manipulate all those things in a workout and see how different your body feels from that.
Oh, totally. I mean, how about this? How about you keep the weight the same, but you make it feel harder by changing the focus of the exercise? Like I could take a bench press.
Creating more tension.
There's 2 different ways I could bench press, for example. I could bench press in a way that maximizes my leverage and skill to lift the most weight possible. That's a very specific technique. It looks more like a power lifter's lift. I don't give a shit which muscles I feel it in. I'm staying tight and I'm pressing the weight. The other way to do it is to feel whatever target muscle I want to feel. In this case, it's probably going to be the chest. And so what I'm doing is I'm driving my hands together and focusing on my elbows coming out, stretching the chest, squeezing everything together. And I'm using the same weight either way. One makes it feel lighter. One makes it feel a lot heavier and more targeted on the pecs. Both have their value. So You can also, that's another way to mess with something, is you could do a set just to be able to do more reps, or you could do a set to do less reps but feel it more.
Right.
Both of them have their value. One isn't necessarily better than the other. A lot of it depends on your goals and, of course, which one is more different for your body than what you're used to. That's typically the one that's going to give you a better response.
Next question is from Hallie Cashman. How do you guys approach treating your kids with food, or do you do it at all? For example, going out for ice cream after a game or on a trip. How do you still communicate good food relationships and not risk developing poor habits?
Yeah, that's a tough one. This one's real difficult. I want to say real quick, we're not experts in raising kids, so this is just our own personal. No, it's important that you say that, right?
Yeah, it is.
This is just from our own personal
we
experience.
have opinions, but yeah.
And I used to be really bad with this. The way I was raised in my culture, we have some pretty bad relationships with food. I don't know if I was telling you guys the other day, but like when I was a kid and I'd eat dinner at my grandma's house with all my cousins.
You got to finish it.
Yeah. Well, my grandma would come out and with a $5 bill. Whoever finishes first gets $5 to encourage us to eat faster and eat more. Like, like that is just fucking terrible if you think about it. But that's what it was, and we would
school.
Oh, it's crazy. So this was something I had to kind of work on with myself, with my kids. But now, really, food. There are foods that are a treat, and what I mean by that is they are reserved and saved for special occasions, celebrations, and they're a part of the whole thing. So it's like, hey kids, we're going to Disneyland. So now that we're in Disneyland, we're going to enjoy some foods that we don't normally have access to or have because this is all part of the experience. I think that encourages the understanding that these are occasional foods, that they're foods for certain, times or whatever.
Right. I feel like this example they gave, and I don't have kids, so I don't know exactly what this is going to look like for me yet. I haven't had it. My son's not eating ice cream yet, right? So I don't have to worry about it. Right now he's 100% on breast milk, and it's really easy to convince him to do that. So my advice isn't great here, but I'm curious to you. I feel like, after a baseball game, let's say he plays baseball like Justin's kids, and he ends up wanting to have an ice cream after the game. Like, what do you have? Like 12 games in the season, so at most the kid's going to have 12 ice creams over the course of 3 months.
Yeah. So for me, that's I definitely draw definitive lines with that because it really depends on you don't want to associate every game with getting a treat,
right?
And so
or every practice they'll do it.
Yeah. So it has to be like an infrequent thing.
Like maybe he had the game of his life, right?
Yeah,
he just had like the.
It makes it more special, more impactful. Like I'm all for it if it's celebratory for a specific reason. It's not like because I ate all my food, I get dessert.
Yeah.
I'm trying to break that chain in my family because I know for me, like I grew up like that. I got ice cream if I ate everything, and that was it. That's like all I had to make sure I ate everything. Then I get the ice cream.
Isn't that funny though?
And then it was hard to disassociate myself with like wanting, because now I'm an adult, that took me a long time to work through. Like I don't have to eat vegetables anymore, Mom. Look at me now, I'm eating ice cream.
I get to the fun part.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that too, if you really think about it, it's like, hey, if you eat more calories, I'll give you more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you eat more food, we'll give you more. Yeah. No, the way I'll do it now with dessert is if I do buy a dessert for dinner, which I'll do occasionally, not frequently, but let's say I do, this is what I'll tell the kids. Hey guys, I bought some whatever, pie or whatever. Now this is for after dinner, but remember you have to eat all the healthy stuff first before you eat the treat or whatever. And that's all I say. And it's just, no, I don't want to eat my vegetables. Well, look, honey, if you feel like you have room for dessert, you should probably eat the more important food, which is the vegetable. But here's the real truth about all this. People are so worried about what they say to their kids to make them, I don't want to fuck them up with food and this and that.
Meanwhile, their behaviors are all fucked up.
That's what they pay attention to.
Right.
Kids, let's say you're like super perfect with your kids and how you talk about food, but then they hear you look in the mirror and say, God, man, I'm fat. I need to or you tell your wife, or the wife tells a husband, listen, honey, I'm going to skip dinner because I'm getting a little fat, or I'm feeling out of shape, or, I don't want to put a bikini on. I don't look good. Look at the cellulite. That's the shit that they hear, and that's what they internalize. They internalize that more than the stuff that you may necessarily say to them. That's where the damage is done. And so here's the problem, or here's the difficult part. If you want your kids to have a good relationship to food, you need to work on your relationship with food. That's where the answer is, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I'm a little more calculated, even when we're going to get a treat or going to get ice cream. Like there's times where, I won't partake, but, and I'm not like saying that or trying to be judgmental as I'm there. I'm letting them enjoy it, and I'm like encouraging, yeah, that flavor sounds great and all that, but I'm not partaking with them. And then they're like, well, why aren't you getting one, Dad? And it's like, well, it's not something I want right now. It's not something that's gonna, benefit me right now. Like I'm celebrating with you, but it's not something I always want. Like I like to celebrate and have treats every now and then, but not all the time.
Yeah, and it's also like, don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah,
like,
just don't make a big deal.
Yeah, like my kids would be like, well, why aren't you having ice cream? Oh, it hurts my stomach when I eat it. No big deal.
Right.
Like I'm not making this big hoopla about it or whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is what you say about yourself, man. That's a big one. And a lot of people do this and you don't realize it. You look at yourself in the mirror, you say something negative about yourself, you don't want to go somewhere because you don't look a particular way, and you vocalize it, you say it or whatever. That's what the kids, if you ever talk to anybody who's got issues with food, a lot of it comes from there. I remember I had one client, this young lady who had a lot of issues with food. And we'd have conversations like this, and I'd be like, she told me, my mom was really good with how we ate and stuff like that. And she says, but man, she would talk about herself all the time, how fat she felt and this and that. And she's like, and I realized, it took me a long time to realize that that's why I have the issues with food, is what she was saying about herself. It's like, man, that's what kids hear. It's like the dad who smokes cigarettes and then tells the kids not to smoke cigarettes. Like that's a mixed message at the very least.
Yeah.
Next question is from M. Royals. What are each of your steps for recovery after going too hard in a workout?
Ooh.
Yeah. First off, how do you guys know? Do you guys have like signs that like you went too hard?
Yeah. I mean, the
usually in the workout, I'm like, uh-oh.
The onset of soreness early is always a quick indicator that I overreached for sure. Because like if I did it just right, the next day I won't feel sore at all, and I'll feel it a little bit on day 2. Mm-hmm. Like that's, to me, I'm kind of like hitting the mark just right for myself. Like, ooh, yeah, I like right now I can feel my back from 2 days ago, but it doesn't feel like
subtle.
Right, it's just subtle. I could go train my back still today. It's not like stiff and hurts or sore to the touch. Like when it gets that sore, then I know I overreached. And so, and when I do that, the things that I like to do, if I can get myself into like an ice bath or something like that, I love to do that, or cryo. That would be a great thing. That doesn't happen all the time. At bare minimum, because we have one in studio, infrared sauna like always makes me feel better. Get a nice, good, warm sweat inside the infrared sauna for about 20 minutes. That helps me. And then I try and boost calorie intake too. So that's a good time. Like if you're gonna bump calories, since I'm always manipulating them up and down. Because I know I overreached, I know my body's trying to recover and probably working a little extra hard to recover, so I could probably use the additional calories. So I'll kind of take advantage of that too. That's when I'll actually increase calories. Just like if I don't feel like I had a very good workout and it was kind of a half-ass workout, I also take advantage of those times as, here's a time where my body's probably not needing a ton of extra nutrients. I'm probably going to dip on my calories on those days.
So I'm with you on the soreness. That's an easy one for me. But I also I also know right after the workout, because the thing about soreness is you have to wait a couple days or the day after to kind of be like, oh shit, I went too hard. One thing that I noticed for myself, and this is what I used to communicate to clients all the time, was after my workout, if I feel like I have low energy and if I feel drained, even if I'm wired and drained, I know I went too hard. The way I need to feel post-workout is calm and energized. So I have a calm energy. It's like I leave and I feel, the word I like to use is zen. I feel very zen after a good, appropriate, effective workout. Like it was hard, but it was appropriately hard. I leave, I'm in a good mood. I feel zen. I could come do a good podcast. I could go to work. I could meet with some friends. If I left a workout and I'm like, I need to fucking lay down. Like I need to go like, I have that
you went too far.
That weird buzz feeling, that's like, oh shit, I went too. That's when I know I went a little. And I've definitely had workouts. So I used to tell clients like that, like at the end of your workout, you should feel energized. If you feel like at the end of your workout you're beat up, you probably went too hard.
Oh, there's a perfect dose. I look at it as like you get that stir crazy energy. You know, like if I feel like I've expended, all that excess energy, like it's such a sweet spot. Like and you feel like that calmness, like you've accomplished something. The rest of your day is pretty chill. Your mind isn't racing quite as much. There's so many benefits to that. And then you pass that threshold and you're just, and then I just want to go to sleep half the time when I overreach. My body just like starts to kind of shut down. So
I lose hearing in one of my ears.
Oh, you push too hard?
Yeah. So you talk about, like, typically the indicator, like I said, is I wait post the next day, I can kind of really tell. But if there's something that tells me when I'm working out, it's the loss of hearing in one ear.
Oh,
what's that where it gets all like it's plugged up, and you're like, fuck.
I don't know about you guys. But do you guys get like kind of like in the mood post workout? Like if you're with your girl, you're like, this is a good time to have sex.
Hey,
absolutely.
Okay, it's the best, right?
Yeah.
If I don't feel like having sex post workout, if I don't feel like having sex post workout, I went too hard typically. If I still wanted, I got the energy, let's go for it. Yeah. No, I probably trained
just right.
Yeah, I trained about just right. But this is a big one. This is a big one for people because it's hard for them to gauge, especially new beginners. Look,
it's not just hard for beginners. This is something that if I were to call out ourselves or call out trainers and I think if you're a professional in the field, you're just as guilty of still overreaching. It's because we all fall in that. I'd rather overreach a little bit than to have a workout where I felt like was a waste of my time or I didn't do. Or
you get carried away with the momentum. Like for me, just like the right music playlist will get my mind just going. Yeah. And man, honestly, that's when I tend to overreach the most is when I have like certain music playing and then I'm just going for it.
Such a good point. Yeah. Be aware of the music and how it affects
That's why I change it as I always tell you guys.
I got to calm down sometimes, dude.
If I'm listening to hip hop, you kind of know where I'm at in my training. You know what I'm saying? I'm not all the way there yet. Once I start pulling out like rage and shit like that, like I've built up to that. I've scaled up to that volume to be able to handle that. Otherwise, I throw that shit on early on, I'm for sure overdoing it for sure.
Yeah. Angry metal is like, I cannot do a 4-second negative squeeze. It doesn't work with that. I have to fucking go crazy.
It's like nitrous for me.
Yeah,
though.
so I do the same thing, hip hop.
Now, that being said, I love referring back to the conversation that we had with Dr. Andy Galpin too, though, that I do think there's a case for the occasional overreaching like that, like pushing the body to those kind of, it's like what
you're stretching your capacity a little bit.
Right. But unfortunately, so it's all who I'm talking to, right? If I'm talking to another professional in the field, a personal trainer, somebody who loves to work out, I already know the conversation. Like the conversation I'm having to tell those people all the time is learning to listen to the body, back off, scale out every once in a while. If I'm having a conversation with the person who hated working out, this is new to them, they don't really want to, those are the people that I'm trying to motivate to push, to stretch themselves every now and then. It's like, hey, it's okay for you to be really hard every now and then, to struggle a little bit. So it all depends on who you're talking to, because there is some value to the occasional overreach, to Justin's point of increasing that work capacity.
Do you guys have any workouts in memory that you can remember that were like, clearly you just overdid it?
I mean, when I used to train with my buddies, that's another reason why I'm so anti-workout partner.
Yeah, workout partners are the worst.
Especially when it's your buddies and you're competitive with them.
Almost all of those were. When I look back,
all my friends.
When I look back to those days, I think like, man, I probably would have progressed so much faster training by myself than with all these knuckleheads, because every workout was competitive. Yeah. Every workout was
add weight
to failure, and adding weight. And if you didn't fall off the curb walking out from a leg day, like you just didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Or didn't throw up. Like it's like that way of training, I think, really. I mean, sure, I've progressed and I did build muscle, but I think,
on accident.
As a default.
Yeah,
right?
I used to work out with a buddy of mine. We were both, trainers or whatever, and it was all that. We were 19 years old, and we would lift so fucking intensely hard, see who would break first, and then we go across the street to Hometown Buffet.
Yeah,
and then it was another
crush like 5 plates.
Yeah, and it was another competition.
Yep,
who could eat more food?
It was the same thing.
I remember a couple workouts where. So one of the first workouts I did where I went way the fuck overboard, I took a barbell, and this is because I read a story from Arnold. I think I shared this a long time ago with you guys. Arnold wrote this story a long time ago, or told the story of how when he was a kid, him and his buddies would take a barbell, go out into the woods, and they would do squats and drink milk in the woods, and they would do it all day. And he's like, oh, and those workouts added, inches to my thighs. And I'm like, I think I was probably 15, 16. I'm like, this is brilliant. Yeah. So I took my cousin and I took a barbell and two 25-pound plates. And we went maybe 25, maybe even 10-pound plates. There were small plates. And we walked all the way to the school, which was, it's probably about maybe a mile. It's not that far, right? So we walked all over there holding the weights. And we took a couple jugs of whole milk because this is what Arnold did. And we did squats. And the idea was like, we're going to squat all day. Like we're going to be here all day. And so we rested as long as we needed to because it got to the point after about 2 hours of squatting, it got to the point where we were resting 15 minutes in between sets. And then we would just squat with the bar. And then it was just body weight squats. And we would just, because we were both there, nobody was like being smart about it. Like I was by myself, I would have been, after 45 minutes, I'm like, this is fucked.
Oh, yeah.
But because it's me and him, so we were out there for hours and we got scared because we couldn't walk home.
Yeah.
I'm like, how? Yeah, this is before cell phones. I'm like, how are they going to find us? What are we going to do? We couldn't make it home. And I had to take 3 days off of school. I'm pretty sure I had rhabdo on that one. Then fast forward, this is when I should know better. I was probably 34 and I'm like just deep into like I'm like PRing everything. It's like when my peak of my strength or whatever. And I don't know what it was. And you ever do this? You go into a workout, you make up your mind beforehand. You're like, this is what I'm going to do. So then you have to fucking do it. Mm-hmm. That's what I did. So I went in there and I said, what would be fucking crazy? If I did 10 reps with 315 on the deadlift and I did 10 sets of that with 30-second rest in between sets. That would be fucking awesome. Mm. So 10 reps, 315, 30 seconds timed, 10 reps, 315. And at this time, I'm pulling in the high fives, right? So 315, the first couple sets was like, oh, I'm bouncing it off the floor. Kink, kink, kink. Bro, you get to set 4, 5, 6. And I remember set 7, I'm like, this is like my hands are about to break. They're starting to bleed because I'm getting, when calluses are getting ripped off. No, I got to fucking do 10 sets. Dude, I fucking fucked myself up with that shit.
Yeah.
I did that whole workout and then I was ruined for like at least 2 weeks. Yeah. I remember thinking like, what did what the fuck was wrong with me?
Oh yeah, we were PRing before it was called PRing, right? We were like challenging each other on every single lift one morning as basically like a team, and just to see how much weight like each person could really like handle. And so we're doing squats, we're doing power cleans, we're doing bench press and overhead press and like everything we could think of. And then after that, we still had to practice, at the end of the day. And I was fucking trashed. Like I couldn't even like barely walk to class. The whole class, I'm just like, ugh. And then, the head coach didn't know that we did that in the weight room. And so it was just like, at that point, everybody's just like groaning, just going through the warm up. That was the worst practice. And he got pissed because it's like, he thought that we were just like being lazy or like, like complaining. And we're like, no, we destroyed ourselves. And so we had to end up doing like 10 extra 100-yard sprints, even at the end of practice. Worst day of my life.
And another time, again, with my cousin, some of my epic horrible workouts with him, we were reading Flex magazine, and it's talking about how you need to fucking push the body. It doesn't want to build muscle. You have to give it a reason, whatever. And him and I were like, we're going to add an inch to our arms. That's what for sure. This is what we're going to do right now. We went. My dad dropped us off at the 24-Hour Fitness when I first started working out there, and I told him come back in 2 hours. And all we did was arms for 2 hours. And bro, the next day couldn't brush our teeth, couldn't eat dinner. My mom sat
just flopping it up on the table.
Our mom sat us down. I remember this. Our mom sat us down and had a conversation with us. We're like, look, we're not going to let you guys go to the gym anymore if you keep doing this to yourself. This is dangerous or whatever. Meanwhile, in our heads, we're like, you don't even know. We're building muscle right now as you're talking to us. Totally worth it.
Misguided effort.
Yeah, good times. Anyway, go to mindpumpfree.com and check out all of our guides. They're free. A bunch of ebooks. They cost nothing. Mindpumpfree.com. You can also find us all.
Free?
Free.
Free.
You can also find us all on Instagram. You can find Justin at mindpumpjustin. You can find me at mindpumpsal and Adam at mindpumpadam.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.